Oy vavoy, where can you go without hearing about the most infamous plague to hit modern history? And more importantly, what advice do the sages give from the Torah? If you want to know what the Torah has to say about plagues and what to do, stick around for this very special edition of Kosher 2.0. All right, everyone. So there is nowhere where you can turn where you're not hearing about this infamous plague that begins with a C. I'm not talking about the disease where you need a chemo treatment for. And it really has people panicked. I mean, you can go to the grocery stores and the shelves are bare. And by the way, like the toilet paper is gone. And you can tell that a lot of people are really, really panicking over what's happening. And it almost seems that the panic is becoming worse than the illness. But there was a great shir that I heard from Rabbi David Sutton, and it was literally comprised of all of the Segulot that are applicable during a plague. And it was funny because they wanted to have this translated out, and I actually volunteered for the job to do it so they can get this information out via pamphlet to many people in their community, and I'm sure wherever and whoever. But I thought also it would be great just to put this up on the channel and get this information out. So we're talking about Segulot in the time of a plague, and we have the sources and what the advice is. And I want to kind of share those things with you today. Now, by the way, for many people who kind of follow my channel, there's a lot of Sephardim / Anusim. So it was almost apropos that a lot of the information that was coming was actually coming from Rabbi Chaim Palachi, who you may or may not know also came from, the whole time of the Inquisition. He was actually like a pirate / rabbi. And you can probably say he was probably one of the original pirates of the Caribbean. So just amazing, like how everything always comes full circle. So a lot of the things that you'll be hearing today actually were advice that came from him. And he lived a good and long life. And I'm told that he survived many a cholera plagues. So who better than someone who's been to the rodeo on these things? And the first one is tshuva. And it says from the Sefer Refuah V'chaim, that snakes don't kill people, sins kill people. And, the Arizal actually says that when there's a time of plague that we must do tshuva. And that almost seems like it goes without saying. But this really, it almost seems like it gets lost on people. And the truth is that there's a malach, there's a negative force that's out there that's causing, that has the permission to, cause this plague. And the way to combat that is with kedusha. The second one is tefillah. So, a lot of times we say these like really quick prayers, and what the advice is that you really need to spend time in prayer. And I always, like I've said this a lot of times, like when you're speaking to HaShem, you have that kavanah, you have to have that, proper intention, which is not always so easy because, as many of us know, the moment that you, even if it's like a sefer, when you're doing your prayers that are coming out of the siddur, even then, the Yetzer Hara comes in, he's like, oh, you got to pay this bills, the kids are bothering, what are you going to cook for dinner? And your mind just starts racing 1,000 places except for where you got to be. So this is a great time to kind of reach out and connect with HaShem and kind of really, pour your heart out. But also, this is a time to say, HaShem, I'm not doing so well in this area, and I really, really need your help. Like, I messed up. I really need your help, and I'm hoping that you can help me with this. Saying Tehillim. This is another segula, and there's a quote from Rabbi Akiva Eger. It says, after the prayers that one should say, Tehillim and other Selichot. And by the way, I uploaded a video that also talked about the effects of Tehillim on the soul, and they are really, Tehillim is so powerful, and it's true that if I think it was the Rebbe who said that if one knew the power of Tehillim, they would be saying all the time. And Tehillim is so powerful, you have no idea. It really can overturn many negative decrees. So say the Tehillim often, say them on Shabbat as often. Whenever you can get in, even if you have one memorized, say it. Just say it. Talmud Torah. Now, it goes without saying that studying the Torah is like, if we're talking about combating this negative force, the best way to do that is with light. And as many of you know, the Torah is equivalent to all the mitzvot. And it's funny because Rabbi Chaim Palachi in Bereshit Rachman quotes, the Gemara in Masechet Menachot, and they talk about, some of the mitzvah that, positive commandments that you normally don't get punished for doing, or not doing a positive commandment. But they bring down a very interesting thing, and it says that, the question is, does a person have to wear tzitzit or not? And the Gemara answers, you don't have to wear tzitzit because you don't have a need to, because you don't have a four-corner garment, but you should try to wear it, because it states that in a time where there's anger in the world, and God is judging the world, and that normally you wouldn't be punished, but when it comes to these mitzvot, you should try to increase, you should strengthen yourself in doing the positive mitzvot. And what is more powerful than the mitzvot of Keneged Kulam? So, and by the way, I heard this brought down from the Sefer Haredim that so you don't wear the tzitzit, but when you go to Shemaim, they'll get you. So, you may not be getting punished here, but no one said that there will not be a consequence when you get to Shemaim. So you really want to, don't brush off a mitzvah just because you feel, well, I'm not in Eretz Yisrael, this will only apply here. Try to do the mitzvot. If an opportunity arose for you to do it, do it. Tzedakah. And the Midrash in Chumah says you need to increase in charity. And tzedakah actually has the power to overturn deen, judgment. And again, here we're quoting Rav Chaim Palachi, who gave the advice that you should walk around with money in your pocket all times. So if somebody asks you for $1, give him $2 and give it happily. Just give it. And it's well known that tzedakah has the power to save someone's life. And the Pele Yoetz also brings this down. And they say that when you're in times of trouble, that really is the time to start giving money out. It's not the time to start withholding. I know a lot of people right now, it almost seems counterintuitive because a lot of people are out there, they're stockpiling, and by the way, we're going to get to that in a second because there's actually an advice about, panicking. But it seems, again, counterintuitive that in a time that it almost seems like you should be hoarding money and hoarding supplies. But this is the time actually to increase in your charity. So the next one is saying 100 brachot with kavanah. So as we know, there are 98 curses, and with the plagues, etc., they equal up to 100 in the Torah. And the question is, how do you get rid of the plagues? And the answer is you say 100 brachot a day. And again, here we are, Rabbi Chaim Palachi says that death came from Adam Harishon. And by making the brachot, you overturn the death that he brought. So again, saying these on a daily basis helps you to overturn each and every one of those curses. So the next one, working on midot hanava. And this is actually from Rabbi Chaim Kanievsky that says that one should really be easygoing and try not to push things to happen. And they gave an example of two rabbis that were up for the same promotion. And one of them just said, whatever, I'm going to let him have it, blah, blah, blah. And he, because he showed this humility, it actually brought protection on him. And in the end, he actually ended up getting the position anyway. So, you know, we, in this day and age, I can't say enough about humility. I think that a lot of us, myself included, this is something we need to work on. We live in a society where we're constantly demanding our rights and demanding, entitlements, and we've become an entitled nation. So they bring down that there are three things that give someone a long life. And the first one is these long prayers, giving tzedakah, and spending time in the bathroom. And I'll leave that one, to where it is. And actually, the Rambam, who many of you know was a doctor, actually states that, one should really, make sure that one, their bowels are nice and loose, but also that they're not stuffing themselves, with food and overindulging. This causes a lot of problem, and it can lead to shortening someone's life. So speaking of shortening someone's life, there are three things they say that will do this. And it's saying no thank you to an aliyah. So it's well known that the Torah is life. And so when you're getting called up to an aliyah, if you're a man and you're getting called up for an aliyah and you refuse it, it's as if you're refusing life literally. So it's a segulot to protect yourself. When you get an aliyah, say thank you. So the second one is not blessing other people. So, if you're not giving blessings to other people, this has the potential to shorten someone's life. And the third is not humbling yourself. Now, a lot of us know that when we're in a state where we're not humbling ourselves, it not only can it shorten your life, but I mean, it really it makes for a really hard time in life and getting on with people. So that's, never a good thing. So the next one is bitachon. And the Rizal says that has v'shalom, if there's a plague that came to town, it can only affect people who are afraid. Now, this is a big one because, we have to draw the line. We have to do our due diligence. We have to prepare. But there's nowhere in there that says we have to be afraid. So it says, those who strengthen in bitachon, nothing can affect him. Panicking is very dangerous. And just as a side note, when I was younger in school, I actually was a diver. And in order to make the team, to qualify for the team, you actually had to be certified as a lifeguard. And so one of the things I noticed is that when people started to panic in the water, they actually started almost like to drown. They were sinking, they were going under. And I noticed that if people would just calm down, right, just be still, literally be still, that their body would naturally float up. It would just float up. And later on, back before I became frum and all that, I used to help people who didn't know how to swim, teach them. My uncle's wife was one of them. She didn't know how to swim. She's very afraid of the water. And this is one of the advices I gave to her, that if you just settle yourself, the buoyancy will just pull you up. And this is it's almost the same thing here. If you just settle yourself, HaShem will naturally pull you up. So have bitachon, having trust in HaShem, is the number one thing. As we all know, nothing happens without HaShem saying something about it. So just know that everything is in Hashem's hand, and that's who you should be trusting and who you should be crying out to. So the next one is saying Asher Yatsa with Kavana. Now, many of you know that when you go to the bathroom, heaven forbid, has v'shalom, that even one, technically anything anywhere in the body, if even one thing were to block, go out of whack, it throws the whole body out of alignment. And, has v'shalom, that can cost somebody's death. But saying, thank you to Hashem for your health, it's one of the most powerful things. And if a person is not grateful, not only to Hashem, but to everyone, like every time, every time you're doing something, or, even if you're doing something for someone else, really say thank you, not only to Hashem, but to that person who kind of gave you, Hashem for giving you the zechus for being able to do this mitzvah, but also for the vessel who kind of, allowed you to be part of, technically they were the vessel and the conduit for you to be able to do this mitzvah. So be grateful. as not being grateful will literally stop goodness from coming down. And by the way, when you praise and you thank HaShem, it is said that the Shekinah comes down, and this is the time to ask HaShem for your needs. This is time to have your requests known. And it's also known, and I've talked about this before, and I know for myself, this is literally, this is easier said than done. But if you're in the midst of being insulted or embarrassed and you stay silent, this is also the time to ask Hashem for your needs. Now, again, I got Latina heat in me, so this was really, it's been really, really challenging to stay silent, because Lord knows I would want to read somebody really quick and let them know about themselves. So this has been something that I literally have to work on all the time. The next advice is being careful with Lashon Hara. And again, we have Rav Palachi who is saying Lashon Hara is worse than Gilui Arayot, which is, forbidden sexual, activities. And you can find, commentary and what that is about in Yoma 82a-B. So be very careful with the Lashon Hara. The thing about Lashon Hara is that, first of all, and by the way, Lashon Hara actually has to do with something that is true. Shem Ra, which is evil speech, is also a very dangerous thing. But what it does is that it literally, because you're talking about somebody, it opens up your file in Shemayim. So where normally, let's say you had an avarot in your file and they would have overlooked it, now your file is being opened and is being examined. It will block your prayers. I mean, there's just nothing good comes from this. Nothing good comes from this. And if you want to learn the laws of this, really you should be studying the works of the Chafetz Haim. And he has great advice, such great insight in this area. And it's really something that every, not just every Jew, every person should really try to take upon themselves. So the next one is saying Ketoret. Now, the Zohar HaKadosh and the Pele Yoetz also say that saying the Ketoret with Kavanah, if judgment is chasing someone, you should say the Ketoret. And in a place where the Ketoret is not being said, countries control you. And it's saying that saying the Ketoret is more powerful than all the Korbanot. And again, a lot of us will find this in our Sidurs, and it should be said, I believe, in the morning and afternoon prayers. I have heard it say, some people say morning and night. Check with your Rav as to what is the appropriate times you're saying this, but it is like twice a day, and women should at least be saying it at least once a day. So the next one, which comes down from the Pele Yoetz, is taking care of your health. And the Pele Yoetz brings down the advice that one should watch themselves extremely, and that not listening to the doctors is a sin. So now, of course, that comes with a grain of salt. We're not talking about a doctor who's just looking to, make money off of you. But honestly, like if a doctor is giving you advice, and we all have someone in the family, the doctor keeps telling them, don't eat this stuff, stop smoking, stop smoking, stop smoking, stop drinking, stop drinking. It won't help me, it'll hurt me, I'll have one more, what does he know, blah, blah, blah. This is no bueno. You cannot be doing this kind of behavior. So in the Maselet Yesharim says if a person is not careful with his health, that sin itself, it's because it's a sin, will lead to a person's downfall. The next one is staying away from lying, and this includes exaggerations. Now, this is like an issue because one thing is lying, but the other thing is like exaggerations, which we almost do it so freely we don't even realize that we're doing it. Like when you say, oh, I was sitting outside for 15 minutes, you took so long, and really it was like 5. That's like an exaggeration. And we got to be careful with that. And actually the advice is that it's extremely dangerous. This is what Rav Chaim Palachi says, that not only is this dangerous, but the fact, which brings me to the next one, which is staying away from arguments, that again, Rav Chaim Palachi says, no arguments of any kind. This is literally dangerous. They said you should give away, like if you're fighting over money, kavod, whatever it is, give it away. You cannot be engaged in machloket. You can't be engaged with any kind of argument during a time where there is a plague. and when there's this harsh, deen on the world, and there's no place in the world where we don't see this happening now. You have to be so careful about getting into an argument. So now we said saying the Keturah, but reading the Korbanot still is a segula to help you during times of plague. So the next one is Hida. And, this is, really, if you have parents, make sure they're okay. Check on them. The Torah, this is the one thing the Torah says that really will give you a long life if you're caring for your parents and you showing them honor. And of course, this means, Torah observant, parents. But, listen, I've had a challenging relationship with my mother. There's still a line of kavod, right? And I still, I know the line, and I try very diligently, and I've worked very hard not to cross this line because I know that no good would come of it. And again, if I cross this line, then it leads to machloket, exaggerations. So I'll end up breaking a whole bunch of other things. So there's a line that I'm very cognizant of. So if you have parents that you're really struggling with, this is something that you really, really, really want to pay attention to. And of course, if your parents have passed away, the way to honor them at that point is saying the Kaddish for them or having Kaddish said on their behalf. And again, if you're, believe it or not, all the mitzvot that you do, your parents get, credit for it as well. So just know that, and again, that also works in reverse. So if you're not doing what you're supposed to do, know that they're going to be looking at them from Shemaim. So this one almost seems like, people have gone wild with it. And the next, advice is not to rebel against the Rabbanim. It says that, rebelling against the Rabbanim can cause tragedy in the world. And, everything that we see, somehow, it's funny, the Goyim are always blaming us for everything, but in a way we kind of are, right? The whole world exists for the Torah, and the Torah is given to the Jews. We have a responsibility to really do it. So every time we see something going right or wrong in the world, we as Klal Yisrael have to ask ourselves, what are we doing? What does this mean? What's going on? So not rebelling against the Rabbanan is, it's one of the worst things that a person can do. I was talking, and I'm hoping Bezrat HaShem to upload this year. There's a class that's coming up on Pele Yoetz, where the advice is also given. A lot of people, they like to challenge the rabbis and they like to do it in person. And let's say you have a question, you legitimately have a question. His explanation has not quite, he said something in a shir or whatever, a lecture in passing, but there's a lot of people there and you want to ask a question. But some people take it too far and they begin to question in a way that's highly inappropriate and it becomes combative. If your Rav has said something that you either don't agree with or you just didn't understand, if it's something, be careful about the way you pose that question in public. I would say that either one, if you can ask the question, it's respectfully, ask it once. If you did not get the answer that was sufficient to you, pull them aside in private and say, either I'd like to talk to you about this more, or I really just did not understand your explanation. I'm still having a hard time grasping this. But having these fights in front of the congregation, in front of people, this will lead to tragedy. No good will come from this. So, really be careful about the way you treat your Rav, and also maintain a connection with your Rav. And it's brought down in Parkei Avot that one should make for themselves a rabbi. One should really have a rabbi that they trust, and that they can, really accept the advice that they give. So the next one is preparing for Pesach. Now, Rabbi Chaim Palachi says that preparing for Pesach is a segula to be protected from the Magafa. So again, Rabbi Chaim Palachi is giving you a lot of advice here. So the last one. Now, by the way, I've also spoken about this in the Pele Yoetz. The Pele Yoetz also brings this down. And it's talking about cutting your fingernails. Now, a lot of ladies may really get upset when they hear this, but not only does the Rav Chaim Palachi bring this down, but the Ben Ish Chai also brings down that the hair and fingernails are part of the body which are not alive. And this is why, like when one, if you're after cutting them or cutting your hair, you're running your hands through your hair all the time, that one should wash their hands, because these, they kind of signify a part of death. So it's good to cut your fingernails and your hair. And again, the Pele Yoetz brings this down. Bli Netter, I'll probably link that shear down, if you're listening on YouTube. But the name of that shear, if you're on my channel, is from the Pele Yoetz series, and I believe it's Grooming. I think that's the title of the shear. So these are, by the way, there was a doctor, and I'm not going to say the doctor's name, but he's out of Muncie, and he gave a very practical advice. And he said if there are people over 60, and they're concerned, obviously they're concerned, with this current pandemic that's going out, is, older people or people with, underlying health conditions. And the suggestion was that they should be sure that they've had the pneumonia vaccine. And as many of you know, the current, situation, the current illnesses is kind of floating around, does kind of give a pneumonic, effect. So the advice was to make sure that you have, that you have this vaccine. So these are the Segulot that have been, advised in times of plagues. And, at the end of the day, exercise common sense and just know that you can always count on HaShem for every and anything. And the wonderful thing about the sages is that, their advice is always timeless. And if there are things that you're, just need to know, just know they are literally, the sages are always there for you in their works. Hashem just gave them a wonder zechus to kind of put these all down in writing for all klal Yisrael for all time. There's so much wisdom in the Torah. I'm so grateful to Hashem for giving me the zechus to give this shir and to bring this information out to you. Please share this information with people. Again, put your faith and your emunah, your bitachon in Hashem. There is nothing else. This is all, Hashem, He's it. So that's it. I want to just, bring this out. I want to wish everyone, refuah shlema, if you're chas v'shalom dealing with this or any other ailment, you should have a full refuah shlema. And again, we will get through this, and we're going to be, Bezrat Hashem, we're going to be intact, a family unit, and I hope that we'll all be together again soon, Bezrat Hashem.
If you've enjoyed this video or know someone who would, please share it. Tzikul u'mitzvot.